Wave Radio.
I are talking about support.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The show is about to begin.
Podcast where Missy and I talk about practical life tips of what you could do on a daily basis to maintain your inner peace and happiness. And today we're going to be talking about support. So for our video viewers, it looks like Missy is back outside and I have gone inside.
We're swapping.
Yeah. So good weather down there for you, I guess.
Yeah, it's really nice, not very humid, and it's probably about 75, so it could be a little cooler, but you know, it's comfortable. How about yourself?
Nice. Yeah, no, it's actually nice if I was out doing something, but sitting with a slight breeze and all puts quite a chill on things.
Yeah.
So
bit nippy.
Thought it'd be a little more comfortable here, but I definitely prefer the outside if, given the right conditions. But as we're talking about support, I'll say the weather is not being very supportive of my desires at the moment.
To be outside, right? Yeah. Yeah. Well,
at least just sitting down and talking.
Right. Well, so we were talking about, like in the last week or so, I've had a lot of different examples of how support has come to me, family, friends. And I just thought it was kind of imperative to talk about this, because I used to have this belief that, my family didn't support me. My friends didn't support me. Like nobody really believed in me. And, it was really a whole like worthiness thing on my end. But now that I've overcome that, gosh, I see it all the time. And I guess I kind of wanted to share with our viewers, like, what that looks like, what that could look like, and maybe open up the possibilities for them to see things differently in their space.
So what do you define support as?
Ooh.
Yeah. Because that was the first thought, as you were just sharing that, the first thought that clicked into my head was, so what exactly do you mean by that?
Well, okay, so maybe I'll go a little far-fetched here, but it's really kind of like an illusionary thing, right? Like it's like whatever your belief is kind of how you see support. And so I guess in my own illusionary view of it is, kind of people like cheering you on, to be happy for you, to be excited for you, to share your excitement for what you're doing. And so like I'm an entrepreneur or a book writer, I'm a coach, I do things like that. And so like it thrills me when I see my family sharing my podcasts or sharing the work that I'm doing in marketing or things like that. And it's not only come across in social media or verbally, they're sharing it with other people, but recently it's come across in, really they're kind of conversations of like their belief in what I'm doing. They're supportive in what they see my vision as, like, and don't get me wrong, sometimes we definitely agree to disagree, but that doesn't mean that they don't support me. Like there are certain maybe ways of thinking that not everybody I have in my family or friend circle agrees with, but they still support me in what I'm doing and where I'm going in my life's journey, right? And so they support me in really being me, like who I was created to be. So I think that's pretty much what support looks like in my eyes.
Okay.
How about you?
No, I would say in a very similar way. not surprisingly, we'd be on the same page that, what are we talking about? But also want to make sure that anybody listening knows, where we're coming from on this. And I would agree that, it's all about, um, kind of a joining, on a mental emotional level
Mm, yeah.
that, it's not just sharing in what another is doing, or as you say, that journey that a person is taking, but what about the joined sharing of, I guess, one to the other, each other, something like that.
Kind of like loving somebody where they're at, right? And I say that because like support could look like so many things of, like, oh, I've got, like, let's say I'm in a different place than I am right now. Like I have people that I know of who have maybe been on a drug addiction path, right? And, not necessarily supportive of their actions, but supportive of letting them walk the walk of where they're walking until they get to the point where they're ready to make the move for themselves, because that's really what it is always, is it's us making the move for ourselves and being loved in the process. Like, we don't always make the best or right decisions. I can attest to myself, having made some decisions that I thought were good at the time, but I look back and I kind of go, well, I'm sure it all worked out perfectly, obviously, but at the same time, sometimes things took me a little longer than I wanted to. And I know that the people that were in my circle were going, she's gonna get it. I know she's gonna get it, right? And but they didn't force their opinions on me. They didn't shove them down my throat, for lack of better terms. They just loved me for where I was and what I was going through. And that's so incredible. It's such an incredible feeling to love people where they're at, not only for the receiver, but for the giver as well.
Well, because it becomes very freeing for the giver, because you don't have to try to do any mental maneuvering to figure out the shoulds,
Yeah.
what you should and shouldn't do. You don't have to do any mental maneuvering of, what's right, wrong in this, what are they, wanting, this and that. You just kind of be yourself in the space of meeting the other person where hopefully they're being themselves.
Yeah.
And then this way it's just individuals in their present moments join together in that present.
Really. And that's like incredibly peaceful, right? We're not shitting on them. We're not shitting on us for them, right?
Yep.
And we have the ability to just be with them. And I think that's another version of support, is just being.
Yep. No, you are present, meeting them where they are, not where you would like them to be, or if you don't fully believe in what they're doing, but you can still support them as them where they are.
Yeah.
I think those are all important pieces, for the giver.
Yeah.
To understand that we're just joining the present moment, and that's the peacefulness, because we're not trying to make something that it's not. And I think it's also that freedom, because then I can do what I feel naturally, authentically, what it is that I would do.
Well, so to transition just a little bit, I think that, and of course I will only refer to my own experience, but, previously in my life, I used to think that I didn't have the support like that, right? Because I believed that, it was, you know, well, they should be sharing my stuff. They should be telling people about my stuff. They should be, sorry, there's a truck going by. You know, they should be, you know, uplifting me more, putting me out there. And, you know, and there's a TikTok video, and it's like, how come you're not famous yet? It says, and the guy goes, how come you didn't share he says the foul word, but how come you didn't share my stuff? Right. And, you know, and that's really where I was like, well, if I'm an author, why are you not sharing my book? And I'm a life coach, why are you not sharing my blog posts, my podcasts? Why are you not doing this? Like, I don't understand. But that was like, at that point, that was my version of what support looked like, right? Mentally, that was my belief that, well, they don't love me and they don't care about me and they're not supporting me. And, you know, that's not how it has to look, first of all. But second of all, since my vision of what support looks like has changed, I noticed that my family and friends are doing those things. Like, it's really crazy. Like, as soon as I let go of that being the way it should be, right? And I use quotations around that, but as soon as I let that go, it was like, wow, you know, and like, you know, new coaching clients are coming in, and people are sharing my book, and people are asking me about my book, and, you know, my parents are sharing my podcast and listening to my podcast and talking to me about things like that. And it's like, wow, they are really just very loving and supportive and accepting me for where I'm at. And it really is based on me. It's based on my decision and my beliefs, not on what they're doing, but what I know is accessible to me.
Which I think brings up then the viewpoint of the person receiving the support. And the first word that really comes to mind is expectations.
Yeah.
That, you know, what are our expectations as to what support would look like? What does support mean? And that's one of the reasons, you know, I asked, so what's the definition? You know, because if we don't know what we're working with, you know, internally, because we're always judging those expectations that I have. So based on my definition of support, I'm going to have certain expectations. And if those expectations aren't met, then I'm going to equate that as, well, you don't support me.
Right.
And all of that is going to create stress and anxiety and a whole bunch of other feelings, you know, depending on who this person, you know, is to you in your life. But all of that just went down a path that has nothing to do with nothing, because your expectation may not be their expectation of the giving of support. And just because they didn't meet your expectation doesn't necessarily mean they weren't giving support. It just didn't meet your expectation of what, you know, you wanted that support to be. But they may have been giving support in the way that they define support and understand support, or in their present moment are able to give support or not.
Yeah. So two things come to mind as you're speaking about that. So one would be, if you don't know what support looks like to you, maybe what might be helpful is, I'm not sure if anybody has heard of, I'm probably sure everybody has heard of, at least in my mind, the 5 languages of love, right? And maybe go take that quiz and see what your love language is, to see how you would then receive that love support, what that might look like for you. That could be helpful. Second, what are you saying to yourself? Like, your awareness about what you're saying to yourself. Because I mean, I'll say we, but I hear a lot that, you know, like, well, nobody does this for me. Well, I'm all alone. Well, it's just me. And, you know, like, it's like there's a certain mentality of, I got to do it all by myself. I have to do it all by myself. There's no one here for me. No one listens, you know, whatever that mentality is, that, you know, and I can say that at one point I had that mentality. I can definitely speak on having had that type of outlook on life. But things change when you start to look at it a different way, you know, and they won't change until you start to open up that I call it the pinprick in the black hole, right? It's like,
Mhm.
the light shines in, the bigger that hole gets. But if you're not willing to open the pinprick and look to see if there's something more than just that darkness, then you're not going to walk through and find any light. So like be open to different ways of looking at it. And, we said this last week in last week's podcast, but dispel the myths, dispel the
Mhm.
illusions that you have for yourself, because it will make you so much happier and see so many greater things in your world.
And I think it's important to discuss that with whomever you were seeking that support, to try to figure out, is it just a expectation issue? Is it a true lack of support? I mean, there might just be some people who just don't care about supporting you or want to support you or whatever it may be. So it just may simply be, I'm indifferent to what you're doing, so whatever.
Right.
But at least we would know, because I think in most cases what it is when we feel then that we're not supported, that in reality what it is our expectation is not being met. And that doesn't mean our expectation is wrong. It just means that it's not being met. And it doesn't mean that the person not meeting it, there's an issue with that. It's just they're not meeting it. So I think that important piece of taking out right and wrong and just understanding that this is just how it is.
So I want to take that and I want to expand on it also, because you have that could be triggering to us, right? And when that's triggering, that to me is one of the 4 pillars that I go by in my life. We have guilt for having done it to other people, right? We project it because we don't want the guilt. We project it on other people doing it back to us, which is the mirroring. And then we can recognize that there's work and forgiveness in ourselves that need to be done, so that we recognize, 1, we don't want to do it. 2, find a way to go help other people. How can you be supportive of what everybody else is going through? Because again, to me, that's giving is receiving, right? And so when you're going out and showing support, like I've had people that are, like just thriving in my life right now, all around me. And, like business or real estate and, all kinds of cool things that are happening. And I'm like, that's awesome. Like, that is wonderful. That's amazing. I'm so happy for you, and not only am I cheering them on and uplifting their process and listening for whatever it is, but that's the support I'm looking for. I'm looking for people to cheer me on when I'm on my next level. And I'm looking for people to be supportive and listen and hear me, right? And love me where I'm at. And so the only way I can do that, and I don't want to say like the law of karma, but really, it will come back to you. It always comes back to you. And that may be a way for you to find support, not doing it because you're going to get it, because you are, no matter what, but still doing it because then you'll see what it looks like as well. Yeah.
And I think when we look for that support, part of it too is trying to figure out whose support matters. So if we go back to what you were saying earlier, when your family can share some of your posts or your podcasts and they can show that support, that's one thing. Then you got the list of followers that are on social media who some may share it, some may just like it, some are just watching it without putting any thing on there. So who really matters?
Right.
And I think sometimes in today's world, we're skewing this idea of support because of the social media.
Oh yeah.
Where the support comes down to not the person who's supporting me, but the numbers.
Right.
So, if that number is high, I feel validated in what I'm doing. But yet the people closest to me like they're not liking it or sharing it, so am I taking the time to speak with them to find out, you're the closest. Well, why aren't you doing this?
Right.
Like, well, what is your support? Because I've got like a million other people who are clicking like and 500,000 sharing it. And, yet the people closest to me are just sitting on it.
And I heard somewhere something to the effect of like, you shouldn't expect, which I'm gonna have to call BS.
Thanks for using both words
Right,
together
right.
in a very unhealthy.
Right. So you shouldn't expect that the people that are closest to you will share or support you because they see you as something different. So like, let's say for me, for instance, I've been the little girl, the daughter, the little sister, and then all of a sudden I became a life coach, and my family sees me still as the little sister or the daughter, or like, so it's not that they see me as the life coach, right? Which like I said, I'm calling BS on this because they're my greatest supporters. They're my best supporters. I know that I don't hear them, right? Is what I'm saying is like, my mom's not going to tell me about how I'm becoming a life coach and how great it is and how wonderful, and you should read my daughter's stuff. And because she's telling it to other people, sitting in the doctor's office, sharing it with her girlfriend, noticing somebody having a bad day on Facebook, go check out Missy's stuff, go look at her podcast. Like, I know that she's doing those kind of things, but she's not doing it to me. Why would she do it to me? That doesn't make sense. Right. Same with my sisters, like we love each other. We talk to each other constantly, and she'll share with me, oh, I was telling somebody this, blah, 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 blah. I told her that you told me, right. Which is really cool because it's coming back to me to know that I got to pass that information on, and my sister is then sharing it. And who knows how many lives that are being affected as a result. Right. And at the same time, like, that she's not going to necessarily always tell me every time she's lifting me up, every time she's sharing me. So like,
Exactly.
That's something else to consider.
Right. Which again, when we look at expectations, which are usually the things that are getting in our way, correct. My expectation would be all of those great things, that she is sharing with all of her, friends and, maybe other family members are the things that I wanted to hear.
Right.
But understanding that whether I hear them or not, the support is still there.
Yeah.
Because of, and what you're saying, what she's doing with others is definitely support. So the support exists. Again, it goes back to that expectation. Well, why don't I hear this? Why isn't it said to me? But also you go back to, well, not everything is about you.
Yeah. Right. And
so
the other thing that I'm hearing is like, not only what you're talking about, but it's extension, right? If I'm being supportive of those people, then guess what? They then extend support to other people, whether it's me or not, doesn't really matter to me. You know what I mean? But like, again, the reach of support really can go very far if we're uplifting and supporting each other, because what we're really doing is giving away free information, right? Which then they extend to other people by sharing that. And really, it's in a way of being that we're extending the information, right? It's free, it's easy. Like, you can't run out of it, right? It's just your mood, your attitude, it's an unlimited resource is what I'm trying to get at. And the more that you give it, the more that other people will give it. And, it could have a really far reach.
Oh, most definitely. And it does go back to, what we were saying earlier, and we've said in a couple recent podcasts now, of that whole thing that, we do receive when we give. So in this case, when you are giving support to others, there is a receiving back. And the good that we receive back is that ability and that power to continue what we're doing and maybe even more.
Yeah.
Which then again, you get more back. So the more you're supporting, the more you're getting back. And, it just really exponentially grows from there.
Right.
So,
Well, I mean, and
the,
I'm sorry. And think about
oh,
how
no,
many
go ahead.
things that we really actually have those unlimited resources for. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like we think of money being our greatest resource, and money's paper. It's metal and paper, right? Our
Mhm.
greatest resources are the things that we can give away freely and never run out of. Information, love, having fun with friends. I mean, like you ask anybody, yeah, it's great to have access to, the best restaurants, the most grand travel places. Of course, it's wonderful to have access to those things, but if you don't have that first wonderful mental attitude, then you're not going to achieve those heights. You're not going to achieve those places with abundance in that way. You have to see the abundance that you have in this instant. You have unlimited access to everything, and that's what standing in the quantum field is like. So anyway, that's another subject for another day. but it just really does. It's like, gosh, it's just that extension of what we already are.
Yep.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah, but so I think when we look at this whole topic of support and what support means, we do have to look at it from both sides. That there is the giver and the receiver, and that the giver is also receiving in the giving, but the receiver has to keep in check their expectations before you start getting disappointed in life to say, well, nobody supports me.
Right.
Because maybe it's just not in the way you wanted it, expected it, needed it, whatever that may be.
I'm sorry. You also have, like we say, words are very powerful, right? And if you're saying no one supports me, then so be it. There it is. You're not going to have people supporting you if you're speaking that into existence into your life. That's my belief.
Yeah, totally agree on that.
Yeah. Well, that was pretty awesome.
I was trying to think of a listener challenge, but it's not coming to me on this one.
I mean, it's pretty simple.
Oh no.
Like I would think, like it sounds pretty simple to me. Like, one, figure out what support looks like to you, right? And then go support other people that way, and watch the support come back to you. Watch your belief on support and your ideas on support and the way that it looks change when you figure it out. I mean, support to some people might just be a hand to hold, a hug, could be someone coming and taking out the trash and, taking care of the kids for the day while they just decompress. I mean, like, trust me, I've been there too. I'm been a stay-at-home mom, and that's sometimes what support looks like. Just do the dishes. That's all I want. I don't want to do anything else, and then support can look like, let's go have coffee together. Let's enjoy each other's company. Let's laugh for a little bit. Let's, or an ear to listen to. So, I mean, there's many different ways that we can support one another to be our best selves, right? And to provide that space to be our best selves. And so that's what I would encourage everybody to do. Like, I mean, that's my number one goal every day, is to be the best me that I can be. And most days I would say I'm pretty on target. Some days not so much, but the days that I'm not so much, those are the ones that I need the support.
But even on those days, at that moment, that's just the best self that you got.
That's it. That's all I got to dish out here.
So, it may be flawed in multiple ways at that moment, but it's still the best you got at that moment.
Yeah.
So then you challenge yourself to make it better.
Yeah. Even that's expectation, right? That's it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
exactly.
It comes full circle there. That's awesome.
That's why I use that word often in life and with my clients. It's that word and perspective are my two
Mm,
favorite words that I think we need to constantly be focused on,
yeah.
because
Good ones.
those are the ones that I think are going to get us into the most anxiety, and then of course that's going to take us away from our peace and our happiness.
Hey, I amen to that one. That's awesome. I'll have to remember those ones.
Excellent.
All right. Well, thanks
Well,
for
this
your
was really
time.
good.
Absolutely.
Yes. And thanks to all of the listeners, and again, please like the videos, the podcasts, and share it with others, and give us that support in the way that we expect it.
Yeah, that's right. That'd be awesome.
But yeah, however you are moved by what we say, and support it in that way that's best for you. But also, if there's any topics of interest that anybody has, please let us know.
Absolutely. Thank you guys all so much for listening.
Have a great one.